Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby, accompanied by my co-host, Robert Pepino. And tonight we are joined again with Samuel Hofman, the Montana Sky Watcher. And we are going to be updating you on all the good news that's happening out there in the wild, wild world of outer space. Okay, welcome, Robert. Welcome, Samuel. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing fine as well. Just a little tired, but better than last show.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Well, it's been a rough ride going through everything that my mother's gone through, but now the healing process is finally starting to take effect, and the stress and the worry is really starting to come off me, and I'm feeling better, which is great,
We have a guest in the chat room. Oh, he just left, and I was just going to ask him. We did have a guest in the chat room that was calling in from West Yellowstone.
Oh, well, get him back in here.
Well, he bombed out on me, man.
Oh, man.
We'll see if he comes back. I've seen him leave and come in before, but I didn't know he was from West Yellowstone.
Wow.
Wanted to ask him some questions.
Right. Exactly. Well, Samuel, how are you?
Oh, we're fine. Up here in Montana, we've had a nice bunch of drenching rain for a while and a rotational backpedaling low-pressure system, which is now over Missouri and heading toward Kansas as we speak. And so we're nice and a little moister than our usual June, so it's a good thing in my book.
Well, that is a good thing. Absolutely.
Okay, guys, he's back.
Oh, good.
Okay, Dylan is bored. If you could call in, since you're over in West Yellowstone, we would like to ask you some questions.
West Yellowstone. Yeah, I imagine it's bubbling a little more than usual, like everything else, like Hawaii's going absolutely crazy, as we were talking about earlier.
As everything else is, but no question about it. But, Samuel, I know, is this fine gentleman going to chat in or call in? Does he have some questions?
He hasn't called in yet. He's just listening, but if he does, I'll inform you guys. Go ahead with your question, Robert.
Well, what I was going to say is, obviously, Samuel, we are seeing now continuous changes. Of course, we have the continuous fireball events, more than one on a daily basis now, as I've been following this. Earthquake events and volcanic activity are pretty much all off the charts at this point. The fissures and cracks that are taking place worldwide is can't be covered up anymore, can't be hidden by any kind of mainstream media source, because there's so many people just reporting on this, because basically anybody who has a smartphone or just an iPhone as a computer is a reporter at this point. And when it gets put on the web, it can't be dismissed or hidden by the mainstream propaganda press. So we're seeing a ramp up worldwide. And as I was talking before we went live, I said, Samuel, there's the shift in the planet. And this took place. It took back a while ago. This happened, a while ago, where the Inuit Indians had said, and I think this is going back at least 7-8 years.
Right, that goes all the way back to 2010 or prior.
Yeah, exactly. They were saying, look, the stars are no longer in their correct position. We can't navigate by the stars anymore. And this is a big issue for them because, that's how they've done it historically with their tribes forever. So now we're seeing all the changes taking place, and then we get the announcement, and we continue to get these announcements, by the way, of the West Coast, of the Cascadia Juan de Fuca plate, the eventuality of that plate sliding under the North American plate, causing a massive tsunami, and of course, they're saying, well, it's well overdue, as well as they've said about the same thing as the physical magnetic pole flip. It's well overdue. These are most likely, in my opinion, Samuel, and you can comment on all this, of course. This is, in my opinion, is the fact that we have this binary system now that is in close proximity, somewhat, that is causing all this havoc we're seeing on the planet. What say you to all that, my friend?
Well, we at Montana Skywatchers and on our Facebook site have been citing an awful lot of the meteor activity that you were just earlier referring to, and I'll get to the rest of that part. We watched on livemeteor.com all this week activity that has never, ever taken place. We have not seen, I'd never seen the color bands on the Live Meteor feed ever. And I've watched it for about 5 or 6 or 7 years now, pretty just regularly. I'll just turn it on and have the background noise and do other things, and I'll turn it up here for a second because I even have it on now. And usually you'll hear a space background noise, and that's all you hear. You may hear it right now, but for the last
I do hear it, Samuel.
Okay, for the last 3 or 4 days, there have been a series of oncoming events that have lasted up to many hours, up to 5 and 6 and 7 hours long, where there was these nonstop full tone out all the way down to the zero spectrum, because it goes from 30 down to 0. It's the height of the feed, how they read it. But anyway, we've had it completely pegged out, and I've seen visual effects of yellow and green and red objects that are many segments of this graph wide, and we've never seen that activity before. Now, of course, we know that the object cluster group is orbiting, and I should say object cluster groups, because basically what it is a whole group of asteroid debris from the major planets that are following behind the two gas giants, and in between them and Nepesity and Isatum, and they are smaller. And in the trail of the planets, it's sort of like a spiral dog's tail. Nibiru leads the way, followed by Ceres, followed by Uri, followed by Atu's moon, followed by Nepesity and Isatum. Now, occasionally, Isatum and Nepesity changes their little dance in order because they're on a different orbit below Ceres than Atu and Uri, if you follow me.
Right.
But yet the same. And then Matim orbits the bottom of the whole group, and that's the tiny, small, little light blue planet that's very, very blue by itself, and it moves quite quickly, and it's only usually visible for a short time, and then spends the rest of the time away from the Earth in the back parts of the atmosphere of the two larger planets. But anyway, whew, that was a breath. But what's been going on is as Atu has passed us, and Atu's moon is still facially very close to us and very large and illuminating in the sky on a regular basis.
Really quick, Samuel.
Go ahead.
When you say very close, what do you mean by close? How close are we talking about here at this point?
Well, it is horizontally dropped down from since December of 2017 to 2018, where it came across the sky, and it was small. It was like the size of a golf ball where you'd hold it out at arm's length. And then it became closer and closer and closer, and over the last 3 to 5 months, it has literally become the size of a basketball to now the size of a beach ball, and at horizon level where it used to be up 30, 40 degrees up plane prior. So it is huge, and it is affecting Earth, and I'm sure it has a great deal to do with the amount of lava flowing from Hawaii and our weather pattern. And if you look at the Earth's weather, we have numerous low-pressure systems. I mean, 20 and 30 per continent over the top of us, and it's just these unbelievable weather anomalies and rotational on-land, literally hurricane strength 1 storm patterns that just keep going, and the Gulf of Mexico is already brewing.
And yet, Samuel, we're devoid of any hurricane season on any coast here in the United States, and tornadoes, which is interesting in and of itself.
There was a formed hurricane off of Baja here last week, and I don't know what happened to it because it didn't carry on our direction much because I was busy looking at other things. But there is the weather pattern that Texas got yesterday, and the Midwest is getting right now. And that's a nasty storm where they're getting 7, 8 inches of rain all of a sudden in 1 hour, and having mass flooding and cars, washing down the streets and trees being ripped out. And of course, that's not making national media news. They basically cover it for 45, 50 seconds on the news when it should be more, should be more important than really what they're covering. And it's
spooky. Well, and that's the whole thing with the mainstream media, as I brought up earlier. None of them are covering anything of what's really happening on the planet with all the fracturing, all the volcanic activity, all the earthquake activity, fireballs. They're not covering any of it. They basically they're told, hey, you know what, leave it alone, don't touch it, don't report on it. So people stay in the dark, unfortunately.
Well, the core illumination of Nepenthe is visible in these major storms. And if you look up and see, you see a green sky, you're seeing the bottom illumination of the bottom of the planet even after sunset. The other night here, the sun was down long, 9:30ish, and at 11 o'clock at night, the sky was still illuminated straight up in the west, actually the northwest, and it was green, which is the planet illumination colors. And, like the moon refracts light from the earth. And we're actually seeing these nighttime planetary refractions from underneath these large, massive, close-by body planets. People are looking for the small stuff, and they're still, I have to chuckle, they're still looking for the small stuff, even though these things have been big for years. And
well, Samuel, let me ask you something. I mean, there's been a lot of people who have gone out in the middle of the night. And when I mean the middle of the night, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, when it's just pitch black and they're seeing an illumination on the horizon, they have no idea what that is. Is that part of the binary system that they're seeing?
Right.
And just unaware of it?
Just like last year's pass, when Atu and Uri first went and could be seen at sunrise in the west, they're sort of illuminating, but they're so darn big that people don't really see you got to look for the round edges, and you have to look for the dark areas first, not the light stuff. You're actually got to reteach your eye how to see these planets by, number one, thinking that they're massive. I mean, they're way bigger than people can imagine. And number one, that always messes with people's sense of reality is they say, well, wouldn't our gravitational forces kill us and all this stuff? And we don't run off a gravitational universe. We run off an electrical universe, and the properties are a little different than man has been taught in school. And so that really stops a lot of people from seeing, because you have to think really, really, really big, because if you don't, you won't see these planets. You'll be looking for dots. And you'll see a lot of asteroids, and we've been citing nothing but major asteroids, and of course, again, we'll talk about the Texas Cube. Texas Cube has been cited. I saw it again by eye the other day. Oh my God, that damn thing is huge, and it's real. And people don't get it. It's an alien presence that came in from another solar system, and we watched it come in from. Go ahead.
For people who don't know what the Texas Cube is, why don't you tell us what exactly it is doing and what it is?
Well, the reason it's called the Texas Cube is because it came in, it was first sighted in Texas over the Earth. We had sighted it at Montana Skywatcher and some deep Google space pictures and stuff, literally 2009, 2010, and had kept a log of pictures of space anomalies and stuff like this in a file. And then when it got here, and I think it was 2014-ish, somewhere, the pictures matched the space pictures, and we just went, holy cow! And then we got such detailed close shots of it that we're seeing, the literal shadowed side, same on side on this cube, and it matches. And then we got more pictures that matched, and more pictures that matched. And then within the last month and a half, it's no longer hiding where it used to be hiding. It's now literally up close to Earth and just showing up right underneath Nepenthe and the object cluster group, and everything in Nepenthe is riding over the top of us in green. And you got to remember, these planets have atmospheres, so they're hard to tell the dividing line. And if you think massive, you'll see the round of it. It's literally on one side of the sky, and the other round is on the other side of the sky. They're that big. And then when you see the green, or you see the purple, and you see Atu's moon illuminating in the clouds, when the sun is off over to your right, and you're seeing this illumination to the left, and you're going, what the heck is that? Atu's moon and the object cluster group also, which is numerous asteroids, they also illuminate, because they're high up off the Earth, and they get direct light illumination, and so we see them over our heads as well. And with this, we're going to call it a meteor scare. These things get close and then they get far, and I'm amazed to this day that we haven't been pasted worse. And like we were talking about, there are lots of hits, and there's lots of houses exploding, and they call it a gas explosion, but sometimes I wonder if it's actually, a rogue meteor coming in and pasting somebody. But, I'm sure there's a lot coming in that we don't even see or hear about.
Well, I look, all I can do is report on what is being reported by other people, but I definitely say this, that there's been a massive increase in fireball activity. It used to be where, but going back to like 2008, 2009, they were being reported not on a daily basis, but let's say on a weekly basis, where there were a minimum of, let's say, 3. Now it's constantly on a daily basis where it's being reported worldwide, 1 to 3 to 4, maybe greater than that on average now. So we're definitely going in through a debris field, whether it's being dragged in, which most likely it is, part of this binary system that we are now passing through or going around in an elliptical orbit. That's
we're headed in a counterclockwise motion while they're headed in a clockwise motion, and
it
we're
could
under
be
them.
That. It could very well be that.
If you are out looking up at the sky during the day, get like gray black sunglasses, because those work best of all. Don't use welding glasses because you'll miss all the good stuff. But if you look and you see a rainbow hueing in either the 7 o'clock or the 11 o'clock position underneath the sun, that is usually the debris field of the object cluster group below Nepenthe or below Attu at that time of day, depending on when you catch them. They do this orchestration past. But light in space only is visible. You cannot, if you're out in space and light is passing you by, you can't see it. It has to break down in a gaseous form or hit refracted dust particles or whatever. But if you see a rainbow hueing up in the sky or near the sun, that's debris field. And then if you look, you'll see big asteroids and little asteroids and massive ones and all sorts of stuff, because there's so much up there right now. I'm in awe that we're swimming in amongst all of this stuff. It's unbelievable. I mean, the other day I was standing there with my jaw wide open because I'd watched them come in for all these years. We've been watching them every day for almost 8 years, and I'm so in awe that we're packed in and we're watching this whole show of these dancing planets that are right over the top of us. It's like looking through a fishbowl, and I just sat there and I was standing out in this parking lot for almost an hour and a half, 2 hours, because I was so in awe at what I was seeing that I put off actually going into the business and having lunch, which is why I went into town. I mean, I just stood there and just stared at it. I didn't want to miss any more of it.
Wow.
Just unbelievable.
Wish we could see through your eyes.
Well,
Samuel, tell us your thoughts about Hawaii and what's going to go down over there.
Well, the tectonic plates, usually when within a fault line, within 150 to 200 miles of every fault line, if you have a subduction scenario, the pressurization of the subduction melts all of this area, and then you have an upwelling of lava and et cetera, different types of basalt, et cetera. And with the pulling and the passing of Attu at the closest horizon horizontally as close it is, there's an electrical transfer between these planets. There's a thread connection. We talked about thread connection in the past. And these planets grabbing each other, it sort of like gives it almost more of like a microwave effect, where our core is probably at a heightened stage. If we have two suns, then I'm sure that we're having two magnets and we're two dynamos, and Earth is probably working overtime right now, being an electrical body and being a magnet of its own, trying to protect itself against the solar influences of two suns now instead of just one. And so, and this is where we see some of the effects of these multiple rainbows everybody's getting captures of and stuff. So, I see this as more of an electrical event, and our internal core is seeping out, and we're probably expanding, and the goo is probably squishing out here and contracting there, and I bet you anything we've got more fluid tectonic plates, and they're all bumping into each other back and forth, because reports of the trumpeting sounds and weird sky sounds and the birds chirping at night and all of that's happening again as well. And you add all of this stuff together, and it tells you, well, we've got tectonic plate movement. And if you talk about the Juan de Fuca plate movement and subduction off the west coast of Oregon and everything else again, then you can also look to some activity of the Seven Sisters and volcanic activity, which is also what's happening in Hawaii. When the plates move, they create pressure. That pressure pushes lava or volcanic materials upward, and from the heat and the pressure, and then it breaks open someplace and leaks out. So absolutely.
Why are the chirping at night?
I'm sure that they are seeing the planets in a spectrum that we don't see. I know that our eyes are very limited by what we actually perceive that goes, through the Earth and past the Earth every day from the input of the sun, and what our atmosphere does not block out and what it does block out. And I'm sure that, birds see it, they can dive, a half a mile and grab a squirrel, so if they see in a different spectrum than we do, I wouldn't doubt it. Mm-hmm. Because we've heard the birds chirping over the years ever since 2010 and the arrival of the first passing planets and the ion drag-offs that were illuminating at night, and everybody was calling spirals off of rocket launches, and there's a difference between an ion illumination between planets and a rocket spiral, and people need to learn which is which. And we've been watching all of that going on literally since 2010, and it's all been documented. And unfortunately, the smart ones go away and become quiet, and so we don't have a great deal of documentation other than those real hardcore ones that are members that are constantly, regularly talking and doing a fantastic job of capturing, I might add. And I owe all my thanks to the Montana Skywatcher members, because it's, like we were talking about earlier, was the citizen scientists doing the reporting, and then you can't have media say, well, gosh, that was swamp gases, and then we know better because we've been watching the same patterns over and over, year after year, cycle after cycle, as these planets, and we've got, close to a million pictures, actual sightings of these planets. We're not guessing. We've documented and logged this for so long, every day. And the funny thing is the rest of the media is not jumping on board with this, even though we've been telling the same message nonstop.
Yeah. Oh, we do have a caller in the window. Let's welcome the caller. Hello, Huggy Bear. How are you? And do you have a question for Samuel tonight? She must have herself muted. Huggy Bear, can you hear me? Okay, well, if she wants to ask a question, we'll let her unmute and bug us later then.
You bet.
My question is this, Samuel. What's going on with the New Madrid? We've had, for quite a while now, we've had a lot of earthquake activity, especially in the Oklahoma area. They try and attribute a lot of this to fracking, which I wouldn't doubt some of it may be attributed to that. But, all through the New Madrid area, especially in Pennsylvania, with all the booming sounds that have been taking place, do you think that is getting ready to fracture in and of itself here?
I'm always watching
soon, along with the West Coast.
I'm always watching the meter at Grayling, Michigan. It'll do a hum, and the Pennsylvania will hum, and Maine will hum, and the East Coast will hum, and South Carolina, and you can see the bell ringing through, the tectonic plate all the way over here to Montana, and you can see it down to Colorado. But, the big thing is they turned the meters down so bad that we could be registering a whole bunch of information that they've cranked down. And I mean, I can jump to that site right now and have a real fast look at what But yeah, the tectonic plates have been doing activity in the last 6 months that they have not for a very long time. And a good deal of that is also not being reported. And the pity is that they keep making it harder for people to look up the science than they do easier. So obviously they're, of course.
Well, I can tell you, I know for sure that St. Louis, being the major hub over there, is certainly unprepared for another, 18, I think it was 1812, 1811, 1812, New Madrid quake, the way they did. And literally people were hearing the same things because it was written in journals, that they heard the trumpeting sounds, they saw the earthquake lights. Of course, they had no idea what they were looking at or what they were hearing at the time, but then the earthquakes would come. And that's the funny thing with the earthquake lights, Samuel, and the boom and the loud trumpeting, screeching, booming sounds. They would happen, but then there would be a lull period between that time that they would hear the trumpets or see those earthquake lights, that it would go a day or maybe a week or even 2 weeks or even longer before some sort of tremor event or earthquake event took place. So that what I'm basically saying is that what they should be expecting right now? And if they are expecting that, boy, I'll tell you, they should all be prepared and be ready, and have some sort of means of food and water and bugging out if they can. That's for sure.
Landscape is never, ever permanent. People always assume that it's going to be like this permanently, and it moves a lot. The Great Lakes were not what they used to be and what they are now compared to what they've become. And over the last 5,000-10,000 years, it's just amazing the changes. Tectonic plate movement happens all the time, and people should always expect some sort of geologic event one way or another and be mostly prepared for it. Now, I've always tried to stress the big point is how many people are around you. It's not the problem of whether or not an earthquake is going to get you, or an asteroid or a meteor or whatever you want to call it. The question is what's going to happen to all the people around you if that happens to you and them at the same time.
Sure.
And that's why, I'm a big fan of empty old Montana, because we've got, like 1 million people in the entire state, and we've got one of the second largest states in the country. So, and we're high up. And, winters up here are rough, but I've always joked about my catchphrase is aloha from tropical Montana, because, after the pull and roll and when they let go of us or whatever happens, if we just keep wobbling or whatever, we all know that, geographically we're not where we used to be because our growing seasons have changed. Yep. I've never, ever seen plants winter over in Montana, and now they're doing it.
Right.
Tops of the trees are burning, we're seeing influx of sagebrush we never used to have. The animals are changing. We're seeing foxes we never used to have. We're seeing turkeys we never used to have.
Right.
They're moving locations.
And here's the thing. Also, it's they've always told us that UVA and B, has always been the norm. But now you've got UVC hitting the ground. They've always told us that it's an impossibility, can't happen. But guess what? It's happening. We've got especially last year and the year before as well. At certain points, it even happened here where I live in Phoenix, where you had these, and it was only in restricted areas, and it was kind of bizarre, right? But you had those big recycling cans, the ones we have out here, these big blue recycling cans for paper and plastic, and for some reason, some were untouched, but others were melted. And I'm not talking burn melted. They were actually just like melted, like liquefied. I don't know why that happened, and same with mailboxes. But I read a story just what was it, last week in Mexico City, where you had the signal traffic lights being melted, and those are made out of metal. Those aren't plastic yet. Those things were melted. So it would seem like, Sam, and I want to get your thought on this. It would seem like that maybe because our ozone is pretty much like Swiss cheese now. We have a very low gravitational, field around our planet, which is supposed to repel most of this stuff. Maybe that UVC, that high concentrated radiation, is punching holes through our atmosphere like Swiss cheese and hitting certain things at certain times and, basically microwaving the plastic or the metal and melting it. I don't know if that's a fact, but it seems that way to me.
You have to take into account when we talk about binary solar system, we're not talking about two exact suns. Our sun is a dwarf yellow Sol, and the second sun, the one that arrived from underneath Earth, is a larger, much larger, at least 2 to 3 times its size, standard red sun, and that's why the major red sunsets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The yellow spectrum changed band, the change in atomic decay ratio, et cetera, et cetera. The second sun is much brighter. It's putting off way more light. We have an event celestial coming where all the planets are going to be on one side of the solar system. Well,
July 29th.
Right. That's also because there's other stuff behind the second sun, and that is Immaru/Hercubus, the main gas giant central electron that's holding the 2 atoms, the binary stars, in place. Excuse me, and it's causing the entire compound of the 2 solar systems that are all linked to this dark, and people will call it a dark star or whatever, but it's an unlit star, but it's a gas giant electron cluster. I've always believed that gas giants like Saturn or Uranus or whatever, which is it, Neptune or Uranus? It's gas giant. I can't remember. I got a dry throat here.
Take a minute and take a sip of water. We can wait.
I'll finish my sentence, but I've always believed that they are because they're pulling in gases and they have a great internal central mass, and I've always believed they were electron clusters. And okay. I'll let you talk for a second, and I'll go get a drink of water.
Okay. Well, apparently Huggy Bear was trying to speak to us, and we couldn't hear her, so she hung up and called back in. So we are going to let her ask her question, and then Robert, I would like you to address guest 17 has a couple questions in the chat after Huggy Bear.
Yeah, I saw those. I've been reading them.
Yeah, so we'll get to you, guest 17. Everybody just hang in there.
Okay, now I've gotten a swallow of water.
Okay, so Huggy Bear, are you with us now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, Sam. Hi, Badbaby. Hi, Doran, I keep forgetting his name. I'm sorry. Robert. Hello, Robert. No disrespect.
Hi, Huggy Bear.
Hey. I've been on your, I'm a member of your site, Sam, for a couple of years now, and I started seeing the big planets. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, just fine.
Okay. And I've watched people come and go and all that, and I'll be nobody, and I mean, I can't find anybody off your site that seemingly knows what the hell's going on now. I couldn't take WSO anymore. I couldn't handle it.
Oh, God, I know.
I watched.
Go ahead. He's selling hype is all he's doing.
Oh, wow. They still think it's these small little things, I mean.
Right.
And it drives me crazy because I'll see the big ones right there. Nice.
Right. Yeah, and I did a bunch of shows for him, and he edited the crap out of them, and he just took the content that he wanted and then spent time belittling me, and then he's collecting a bunch of money and then vanishing on people. I don't even think they get these T-shirts. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. It's really hard to find anybody that knows the truth. You're one of the few, and I want to thank you for that. Honest to God, if it weren't for you, I don't know how It's hard enough to know. I just look up at the sky, and there they are, even if it's super cloudy.
Yeah, and there, we started this whole thing because there was no real-time information anywhere, and everything I looked at was 2 weeks old, and I couldn't get to the guy who actually took the photograph. And so, we formed up Skywatcher so that we could get the live worldwide feed, and then I started befriending people all around the world on purpose so that I could, get them on board with this, because once I saw the first pass by, and I had been expecting the planets for many years because of my information and background with my chemistry and the government and all this other stuff, and I hope everybody is on board with that information, and you can look that up or come to Montana Skywatcher Facebook site to look that up. But anyway, I'm glad that you're actually seeing this, because it's so important that we get the actual truth out, and I am totally in awe that nobody else has gotten on board with this, and although there are a lot of people out there that are using the information that has been laid out by our site, and they don't even barely know it, and thank God for that. But, it just takes a little bit of back study for yourself and looking at the truth and the information, and stop looking for the little stuff and realize that these things are sky fillers. They're huge, and I'm sure that you see that.
I do, and I'm noticing, I'm sure you're aware that what I would call asteroids, that we're surrounded. These things are huge now.
Oh, I know. And we've been seeing the skull again, and I try not to talk about that because I don't want to freak out little old ladies and stuff like that. But I mean, and I watched a video the other day, and the guy says on it, well, and real great British accent. He says, and yes, NASA has told us that the orbit of this thing is every 3 years, and I'm going, no way, dude. We see this thing every. We see it for 6 months, and then it's gone, and then we see it for 6 months every day again. And I've got pictures today where the skull is streaking across the sky again, and it's freaky as all hell. And
it is.
Go ahead.
I have a picture of one from the other day. I've been meaning to post over there. I just don't log in every day over there at Facebook, but I'll post. I got the same thing.
And we've been watching these asteroids go over on Live Media, or Live Meteor. I keep calling it Live Media.
Yeah.
LiveMeteor.com, and I'm just sitting here. It's one of those OGs moment where you're grabbing hold of your seat and going, oh crap, And a lot of people have been watching it, and I'm not trying to freak people out, but Jesus, this shit's huge, and it's close, and it's like I am in awe. I'm totally amazed. Go ahead.
The sad thing, I don't know about where you're at, but where I'm at. I'm in the mountains, but I'm over between West Virginia and Maryland, and I made sure, I just got in. It doesn't make any promises, but it's the best I could do with what I had, and I'm by myself. But I can find nobody that knows, and
well,
I can't even get their attention. I've tried.
Right, and I've gone to the spectrum where people go, and they go, okay, so if I was to believe your information, then what can I do about it? And then they walk away, and you just sit there and you're in awe. And I figure people should know. I mean, I'm obsessed with this because I see them up in the sky, and it scares the crap out of me, and I want to inform people because I know a whole bunch of what's going on, and I'm so glad that I've done this every day because I've got a level of understanding that no one can touch, especially since, pardon me, Steve and his couple of little buddies are all, making money off of and selling a bunch of small-time hype, and they look at one picture and they don't even know, and we're looking at thousands of pictures and comparing them every day.
My question to you, Sam, when I have seen it in person for several years, when the sun it's not the sun, whatever it is, it's huge, the light in the sky, and I know them big planets are coming in. Is that our sun?
Yeah. See, now when they start to cut off the part of the sun, when one of the edges of the planets come in, it's called a cutoff flaring, because the light illuminates through the atmosphere of these planets. It's not like they're just a rock or a box coming in front of the light. They have an atmosphere, and that flaring increases the size of this massive output of flare of sun, and it gets so bright that you can't even tell what's what. And then there's that milk effect, and then and currently we're having a cutoff from opacity from above, and you'll see a green color to the sky and everything else like this. And then we're also having a side cutoff because within the last week, we've started to see that Attu's moon is coming across in front of the sun, as well as the object cluster group as well. But that only gives minor refractions. But these light refractions, you've got to come to understand. Go ahead. I can't understand. But these light refractions, you know, everybody wonders about a fake sun, and there is no fake sun up there. That's not what's going on. We're seeing a cutoff flaring from an object that is changing the illumination overall of what we see. And you'll sometimes see halos, and you'll see backlit crescent flaring where there's a rainbow coming out the far side of a planet, and because it's shining behind the planet, and that puts off a weird illumination and milky look as well. You've got to judge the light. Go ahead.
I have stood right underneath the big, huge halo. I think you know what I mean. And I'm so glad, thank you, on your site, I think you explained it once that we're looking at three objects right there. I think it's the sun, the Nemesis, our sun, the dead sun, right? The brown dwarf sun, wherever they want it.
It's not a dead sun. It's a gas giant. It's an electron cluster.
Really?
It's I refer to it as Hercubus or Imaru. Go ahead.
Okay, wow. Is that the biggest one?
Yeah, that sucker holds the two solar systems in unison, and they follow through virgin space in a spiral, and they're usually separate from each other, and then they join every 3,654 years, and then they separate again. But we don't know when they separate. That's the thing. They could be here for 10 years like this or 100 years like this. We don't really know.
Oh, wow.
We are seeing changes because, you know, the planetary locations we were just discussing earlier, how all the normal planets are on one side of the solar system, and yet supposedly there is empty space, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is go ahead.
I wanted you to know I've had some encounters myself with, I'm not real sure where they were from, and that that was not a good encounter, but right after that I had one come down to me that was a very, very powerful beam, just so you know, and it was very good. So
ETs are real, we know that. We know that there are other life forms out there. I mean, to assume that we're the only thing is excruciatingly arrogant and very man-like and stupid. But anyway, go ahead.
Thanks. Well, I just wanted to thank you for going public about that.
Well, I want to thank you for talking as well, because, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. It really isn't.
Okay.
People, anyway, sorry.
Thank you, Huggy, for calling in. I'm going to mute you back if you decide you want to talk again, star 8.
Thank you.
We're going to address guest 17, and we also have another caller from Iowa. If you wish to speak to Samuel or ask a question, just push star 8, and that will raise your hand, and I will unmute you. Go ahead, Robert. Cover guest 17.
You bet. So, Samuel, guest 17 asks, is Hercolibus, is it a star or planet, or is it gas, or is it a gas object like Jupiter? That's the first question.
Right. It's an electron cluster, in my opinion, meaning it's a massive, massive gas giant. We've got a few pictures of it on approach, and we've got some microwave pictures of it and stuff like this, and it's that big reddish thing behind the two suns. And a lot of people are thinking it's a halo, and every once in a while it gets illuminated from the side, and I'm thinking that's from the Tool Star, which is a blue star around Nibiru, and it's a microstar. And the Tool Star is different from any sun simulator, believe me. Anyway, it is so massive, it fills up literally half of our solar system, and its approach and the changes in the standard red location versus ours could be occurring right before us, and it could be filling up the other half of the solar system and pushing all the other planets into this side, including the Nibiru planets, because they're right here with us between the first ring and the third ring, and on occasion I still believe that his satum has been literally on the backside, if not the left hand or right hand side of the first ring, real close to our sun's for quite some time. But anyway, I digress into that. The Imaru Hercubus, they are a dark, unlit gas giant that holds the two binary stars in place.
Okay. And he goes on to ask here, or she, not sure, says, what does the atomic decay change mean for us, and how will it affect us?
Well, scientists noticed that in 2009, 2010, 2011, the atomic decay ratio of radioactive material had been changed. Their normal standard equation no longer fit, and they were wondering why. It didn't completely wipe out everything they were doing, but they noticed an aberrant change, and that has to do, I believe, with the atomic structure and addition of the second larger sun. And I think that adds a subatomic influx of some sort, either electrically or the subatomic weight ratio factor offsetting, or any numerous thing beyond that. So I hope that answers that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I wasn't sure what she or he really meant by that, but could it also be that we're also being affected, by Fukushima and other nuclear accidents that we've had as well? Does that play into that as well, Samuel?
Well, I believe that atomic ratio decay is when a compound isn't stable and it starts to decay, and then you have literally when cesium-213 becomes cesium-212, it throws off these electrons and it changes the structure. And in modern day chemistry and science, they talk about that, but they never actually discuss what happens to the things that it throws off. And those neutrons or protons that randomly travel by themselves and have still a magnetic and an electrical existence or continuance to them. And I refer to that as a free radical electron cluster. And that's what I truly believe, that like wormwood or the OCG or quasicotal or whatever you want to call, let me see, Apophis, the object cluster group, or asteroid pack as NASA is referred to them as. I believe that this decay ratio, because of the extra star, could be affected or amplified or reduced depending on certain scenario, if you follow me.
Kind of. Trying to follow you here. But
I think that the atomic ratio of proton and neutron exchange would be enhanced, which is what's going on in space with, the electrical discharge between the planets and things like this, and it's creating space water and gases, and the electrical discharges and the electrical extra nuances of the second sun will add a higher potency to that same equation or ratio.
Okay. I kind of get what you're saying.
We have this alignment of all these planets on one side. How is that going to affect us, Samuel?
Well, I think, atomically there will be a more denser weight ratio. Now, we're also moving through the ecliptic plane of the galaxy. And they talk about the strong wave and the weak wave properties of the magnetosphere of our solar system and our universe and all of this, where we're traveling through the stronger properties. And I think that might have something to do with why all the planets would be pushed over to one side. And because I don't believe in a gravity well situation. I believe that like you could say, stellar winds were, at a higher ratio than they normally would be. And a second sun would also create that possibility as well. Solar winds, increased speed, et cetera, et cetera.
I got you.
It's like being on a surfboard and being up on the wave before we weren't on the wave, and now we're on top of the wave. and we're being pushed to the higher ecliptic of the solar system, which is why the stars have changed, because we're moving up to the upper half of our Milky Way, and that's why our Milky Way is moved from where it used to be. And why I would also add that perhaps the Earth is wobbling as well is because we are traveling at a different pace than we normally used to. It's like the centrifuge of the spoon stirring the glass even tighter as the spoon goes to the center of the glass.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I really feel, my personal feelings about Hawaii is those people, if I was there, I would leave that island.
Well, the northern half is pretty much safe. There's a fracturing, almost a glass-like fracturing that occurs to volcanic island and the pattern of geologic behavior over the last 3 to 5 million years, because it's always moving in the direction of south by southeast. And so, if they were to have a major quake or a slip-off, it's going to be that whole uninhabited area of the state park mostly, and that shoreline, that would fall into the sea, and those people on Hawaii proper and Oahu and all that wouldn't be as affected.
Yeah, but isn't the air quality? I mean, the steam that's coming out of the ocean, isn't that toxic?
Well, when you live on the volcanic islands, I'm sure that they're probably quite used to that behavior. When we had Mount St. Helens go off up here, it sucked for quite a long time, about a year, but over time you kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
Because it's the only game in town, so you have no choice but to get used to it.
Right. I get it, but still, I have breathing problems now. I don't want more.
Oh, yeah. And, if you have issues, then it would, of course, exacerbate, and that would be no good. And if they did have to move for that reason, I would recommend it. I've had to move from metropolitan areas to a quieter town because of the noise ratio. And so I understand. You got to move.
Yeah, no question about it. Sammy, throughout history, it's very evident more than anything else that on most major coastlines worldwide that there has been land masses that have subsided under the ocean with these metropolitan cities of the time, of the era, subsiding underneath the ocean, and land masses either coming up out of the ocean, just completely sinking them. They've been found worldwide. Is this one of the expected effects of what we can expect in the future here with this binary system coming back through?
Well, the Italian Ocean is rising again, and that has to do with even a minor geological effect of its overall volcanic stored caldera as well. Sometimes calderas rise and sometimes they sink, and that will lower entire region up or down several feet in some cases. Now, Italy suffered from that over the last 2,000 years or so, and now they're seeing a reinsurgence where that land is actually starting to, the ocean levels are starting to recede a little bit, and some of those sunken cities are starting to rise back up again. But, I believe that with the planetary passes, depending on the nature of the soil, I think we could see major tectonic plate slides where you see actual miles of distance traveled all in one matter of a swoop. I believe, because if you look at the geological under ocean pictures that the National Geographic and everybody for years has been putting out, these long trails where you can literally see where the continents have slid across the ocean floor, and yet they look so terribly fresh. And I totally believe that we move quick. I don't think we've got these minor, because if you look, we've heard rumors of Africa moving, quickly to the south, and
right.
We're hearing the stories about the cracks at Madagascar and all of that activity that's happening very violently, and yet none of it makes the national news unless you absolutely go out and look this stuff up.
Well, they just had a new crack in Mexico that was huge. I can't remember, 220 feet long, I think they said it was.
Well, the Hopi prophecy talks about the turtle's back being broken, and that would refer to the Yucatan Peninsula, and I've always believed. And so it's entirely possible that we're witnessing a very slow train wreck of all sorts of things happening right before our very noses.
Yep. Dylan's board wants to know if you think Yellowstone will rise or will it sink?
Well, that depends on caldera activity. In order for it to sink, we would have to see that volcanic material empty someplace. Now, I don't truly believe that Yellowstone is a major danger and will blow up and take out half the continent. It's too highly vented to actually explode. Now, if it was a sealed-up, brand-new volcano had never blown in its entire history, I'd be more inclined to believe that, like Rainier or something, who has a small, minor history of volcanic activity, but hasn't seriously blown. And those are, of course, taller and taller peaks, like Pikes Peak and such. Pikes Peak has never blown to my knowledge, but to me it looks like a very large volcano. Anyway, I don't believe that it's going to be a major subduction or anything. I believe that the Rockies are going to go up, and Yellowstone is part of the Rockies and just on a little eastern side area, and it's a fracture in the plate, and Yellowstone is moving to the east over the last 5 to 10 million years, and it used to be farther over in Washington State, and then before that it had to do with subduction of the Juan de Fuco over the last 100 million years, because that used to be a larger plate but has been completely enveloped under most of the United States to this day, and that's why it's been renamed Juan de Fuco. I hope that answered your question.
Well, for me it did.
I had to mute myself for a minute there at a coffee, so Robert, you want to take over for a minute?
I thought I heard a cup in the background. That's not fair.
Yeah, let's see. I've got to mute again, you guys.
All right. So, yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned, you had mentioned, I wasn't specifically talking about, volcanic craters subsiding or rising, but I was talking about major coastal cities, Samuel, that we've seen subsided or sink basically on the coastlines of a lot of the major continents of the planet. And my question is, if we follow pattern, if we follow suit, if these planetary bodies that pass through our solar system, this binary system that pass through our system, is on an evolutionary cycle, which it's a repeated cycle, should we be expecting the same type of events? Of course, I'm not saying the same masses of land rising and falling, because it's on the unpredictability of land masses themselves, of pressure, of lava flows, ocean pressure pushing down on that land mass would be just an unpredictable event. But it seems like it takes place coastally. Should we be expecting something like that?
There have been periods of time on the Earth where we were not a frozen planet on the North and South Pole. There have been like the Jurassic period. There's been periods where the entire planet has been tropical, and I believe we're either swinging towards that, which is likely, and then with a possible add-on of everybody's freaked out about the mini ice ages and that sort of thing, and the passing planets can have a great effect on that as well. I believe that what we're going to do is we're going to get much, much warmer for a greater period of time, because the sun is here, and heat is an energy that does not dissipate, and it's all the planets that are warming up, not just Earth. And all the planets have tipped since the arrival of the second sun, and we've seen a pole change in all of the NASA's pictures, but of course nobody talks about that. And we've seen the light in Antarctica for years, where it was supposed to be dark during these periods of darkness that was supposed to be taking place. And so we know that this is all happening. And so I would plan for a very warmer environment, and we might actually be lucky if we have a cooler environment, although Antarctica is melting far faster than they expected. They announced again this week, and therefore we can constitute anywhere from the 30 to 50-foot sea level rise, all areas. So, yes, you may end up, that which we used to live in is going to definitely change. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to go back to how it was. It's going to be different.
So that's more or less, in your opinion, should be expected, that there will be rising and sinking of land masses, and most likely it will be coastal in nature because of the melting sea ice, but also because, and this is something I've talked about in the past, because most of the water is held on the equatorial bulge of our planet, and
right. Go ahead.
When the pressure, when these planets come by, because we're compressed, we're not a round ball, we're a little bit oblong. When these bodies come by, they squeeze the center, pushing that water mass in towards the into the land masses,
right.
causing the inundation.
And if
flooding.
we do have a rollover or a major angle shift, or even a minor pole shift that stays stable, that new region or that new axis is going to have a central water rise level that's going to be standard Earth bulge for the troposphere. Or the tropical sphere of the center of the axis of the planet, and we'll see a definite water rise, and that will be up to 30 to 50 feet as well. So,
wow.
I'm
over here in the Great Lakes, so am I toast?
You're in low level now. That depends. It depends on where you end up. Now, a lot of people have been planning that the cool area is going to end up being the middle. Where, like, say, for instance, Kansas is the middle of the United States, will end up somewhere at the tip of South America and Mexico. That's where they say will be in the middle. And then, of course, they also say that Sweden, where the sea vault is, will also be in one of those nice regions. So, I mean, there's no telling what happens until it happens.
Right.
Because you cannot plan for this. You just have to sort of wing it and go, okay.
Right, you're right. You got to kind of go with the flow, Sam. There's no question about it, because it's unpredictable. What's going to rise, what's going to sink, what's going to be ended, what's going to be not. It's just that's the unpredictable factor of that.
Don't you think? Like, for instance, Houston is just constantly flooding. They say Houston is slowly sinking.
Well, that's the sinkhole that all of Texas is what the Grand Craton is, bumping into the Ozark Mountains, and it's chipping off, and there's a sinkhole, literally, Louisiana and Arkansas and all that is a deposit of the Great Lakes, filling in that whole area with sand over the last, 20, 50, 60, 70,000 years. And Texas is sinking because that whole area is a major sinkhole, because it's seawater chewing away on limestone, and they're getting basically calcium carbonate when you put seawater on limestone. It's like fizzy tablets going and eating away. So of course it's sinking. And
so that's the same thing that's happening to Florida, correct?
Yeah, and all of that coral and everything is calcium. And you put salt water on calcium, and you end up with a fizzy tablet. It just eats it away over time.
Right.
And that's why they've got all the sinkholes and the underwater springs and everything.
Well, same can be said for the Asian-Indonesian plate, by the way, because they have been flooded more times than you can imagine, much more than Houston. They're basically sinking over there. So it would appear that a very large mass of that continental shelf is starting to subside. Yeah, it's doing it slowly, but we're seeing that because the flooding has been unprecedented year after year, and it seems to be worsening, not getting better, Sam.
Well, look at the future Navy 2 map. Look at Gordon Michael Stallion's map.
Sure, of course.
And that's the one thing you always have to remember is that, like I said earlier, that landscape always changes, and sometimes it changes within our lifetimes, and sometimes it takes 4 lifetimes before it changes. But, those vertical rocks that are standing all over this country that are part of the Rocky Mountains got vertical in an awful fast hurry, and people don't take that into account. I mean, how do you push a rock that weighs billions of tons straight up and then not have it turn into rubble? Well, because it did it quick.
Yeah, I got to kind of agree with you. I mean, like I always say, well, not always, but I've said this to many people. I said, earthquakes, they don't happen slow. All of a sudden there's an earthquake and it's happening and it's immediate. There's when lightning strikes, it doesn't take 10 minutes for it to come out of the sky and hit you and watch it in slow motion. No, it's instant and it hits you. It's with everything else. When that moment of compression takes place, it's instant. There's the ups, there's the upscale, the upwelling. There's the pinnacle, the peak, and then there's the downwelling. But it's the pinnacle and peak that hits. Boom! It's instant. Everything else is the aftermath of that.
We talked about on the last show. I said, "Have you got a boat?" And people in Kansas and they're in Michigan and Wisconsin and all of this, and they're getting these major rain events, and it's happening in just one quick 1 hour period of time, and these close passes of the planets come and they yank up all of this moisture from our atmosphere and pull it up in the air and then drop it. And I've been trying to point this out to people that what you have today may be gone in 10 minutes, and you have to sort of that's why I always talk about having a bug out kit piled in one place, including all the sleeping bags and everything that you're going to possibly need, including tarps and everything else, piled in one place and ready. And if your house all of a sudden gets smashed, then that pile of everything is in one place. Even if it's buried, then you know where it is still and you can get to it. And I mean, we could be seeing planetary passes this year, and it's just like last year, but they're more extreme and they're farther south. Last year it was over in Canada that all of this hit, from Montana to Canada. This year it's hitting literally from Texas to Maine and Minnesota, just like it did last year. And if you go through last year's weather, you can see this happening again. And these are close passes of the planets, and people need to know these asteroids are underneath that. So between us and these planets is all these crazy-ass asteroids, and there's lots of them. And I'm partially panicking because, oh, my God, I've been waiting for 5 years for these suckers to hit for as close as they've been going by us every day for, and we've got documentation going back all the way to 2011 when the first sightings of the object cluster group were coming in way, way out in space. And they were just this weird rainbow blip that showed up in everything in all these pictures. And then over time it got closer and closer and closer, and we've identified it as basically like an electrical asteroid group. And now with the meteor showers that we've been seeing, I think, here's another heads-up warning scenario. We need to really second think that, things could change really fast.
Very true, and they usually do. When the flooding hits, it hits immediately, and people are always unprepared for it. Earthquakes are usually unprepared for it. There's a small minority of people who pay attention, and they're ready. But for the most part, most of the people aren't prepared. So you're right.
And the containers.
It always creates a lot of loss of life too.
Something that where if it gets wet, it'll float rather than sink and submerge and fill up with water. I mean, what you store your stuff into is important, and how you, we talked about this last show. Spend a day or two at your house with your family with the electricity turned off. See what happens. That's right. Do a practice run to find out what's important and what's not, and you'll get a real hard lesson at what it's like to be suddenly thrown into a civil defense moment, and you'll learn so much by doing it in your own personal environment rather than just sitting there trying to imagine it in your own mind. And I talk to my kids about it on a regular basis, like, what if this happens? Are you prepared for this? Because it can be a psychological killer, too, because you'll wipe out going, oh, my God, what are we going to do? But if you expect it, you'll be a little bit better prepared.
Yeah, real life scenario, make it happen for yourself. Would not, in other words, create a local event for yourself, your family, turn off the lights, and see how you're going to actually react, and see what you're actually going to do in a real world scenario if it were to happen. So you're absolutely right. Do you have the supplies? Do you have the water? Do you have the food? Do you have the necessities to keep you alive? And, I've said this in the past, Sam. You're very lucky in the sense that where you live, you don't have a whole lot of neighbors next to you. For people like myself who, even though I live in Phoenix, it's very sparse, it's a very rural community, but it's a large city. But for people, let's say, who live in L.A. or San Francisco or, any of the East Coast, New York especially, you're talking about people living on top of each other. If any major catastrophic event were to take place, the lights go out, you're talking about a very dangerous scenario because most people, again, don't have the necessities to probably go on more than, I would say, 48 hours of food or water. Now, imagine that turning into a week or 2 weeks or a month or months on end.
No bathroom water.
The most dangerous, right? The most dangerous thing is somebody who has nothing, who's going to go out looking for something that you have that they need. Then it becomes a very dangerous situation. Right, friendship and all that other stuff gets put aside for the fight and survival of their own life. That's right.
You cannot get out of town afterwards. If once you're stuck, you're stuck. So you have to sort of plan a little ahead of time too.
You're absolutely right.
And you have to say, do I want to live here?
Well, let's talk about something we haven't talked about: the Canary Islands, the volcanic island off the Canary Islands, and it's slipping my mind the exact island that I'm talking about right now.
El Hierro.
No, I don't think it's El Hierro. It's I can't think of it at the moment. But anyway, that volcano basically is, if it gets hit by another major disastrous storm of any kind, they said that half of that volcano could slip right into the ocean, causing basically a 100-foot wave of water pushing right towards the East Coast within a matter of 8 hours.
Right.
Most people are going to be completely unprepared for that. Now, granted, yes, it'll hit the eastern seaboard. That 100-foot wall of water will get, hit a large amount of very tall buildings, will subside quickly. But the fact is this, that you have all that seawater coming in. It'll be a repeat of what happened in Fukushima Prefecture in Japan in 2011. It'll be the same scenario. 20,000 people died, Samuel. 20,000, and I want to let this sink in everybody's mind. 20,000 people died within 15 minutes of that tsunami coming in and devastating that prefecture. That wasn't all of Japan. It was just the Fukushima Prefecture.
Right.
20,000 people died in 15 minutes. How many people live in New York and along the eastern seaboard that would be affected by 100-foot, 50-foot, 75-foot wall of water, who don't live in some a mega structure that probably will not affect them, but I'll guarantee the electricity go off, and I'll guarantee you most of those people, Sam, don't have more than 2 to 3 days worth of food and water in their homes, their apartments, their condos, whatever.
And we haven't talked about high winds yet either.
No, that would definitely come into play. Well, it's already come into play, actually, Sam, because a jet stream has already been affected drastically. That started 2 years ago. This is why you're seeing such bizarre weather patterns, because of the extended or the extreme wobble that we've already gone through. That's already happening, and people are being affected worldwide because of that. But simply to bring up what I just said, how many people would be prepared? You're talking about millions and millions of people who would be prepared not to have enough food or water or any kind of protection to, maintain what they have against their own neighbors. That's the frightening part about that.
Do you have containers in which to carry 5 gallons of water successfully without spilling it all over the place? Do you have the ropes? Do you have the tarps? Do you have the sleeping bags? Do you have the stuff you need that you're going to have to be ready for just to get, because, if you're tired and exhausted, you sure as heck can't find food tomorrow.
No, there's no way. It's not going to happen.
So you've got to, you got to think to yourself, what do I need to put away that I can buy a little extra up here today and tomorrow at the store every time I go, and put a little extra on that shelf and stuff that's dried and it will keep well, because if you don't eat it, it'll end up, you won't eat it. But I've gone through that, and I've watched over the years what I thought I wanted to buy, and then I would end up going, wait a minute, I wasted my money. But it's a process, and you have to think about these things ahead of time. Like, going to work tomorrow is not all that's going on. There's other things that are going on, and I watched people in town the other day, and I'm watching the square cube in the sky go blatantly past, and absolutely no one is looking up. No one.
That's the norm, though, Sam. Nobody's looking up. They're looking down at their iPad or iPhone or whatever else, electronic device they have in their hand. Nobody's looking up anymore. It's a fact. Spooky. I really, and I've said this 1,000 times, I do not know how people do not see these things, because when I saw that first one go over in 2009, early 2010, I just sat there and I stared at it probably for a half hour as it went away. It's like, wow. And this thing was so big that, I knew immediately what it was, because I was expecting the Nibiru group, because I've known about them since the early 80s. And, the two suns and everything from my equations. But granted, now because I expected them, I immediately knew what it was, but seeing is knowing, and the only way that you can go out and see is to actually go out and see and take the time to do this. And you got to look for the dark areas. Now, the problem is on the, when you're on the seashore or lower altitudes, you don't get the view that we get up here in Montana. We get a better view, and you can understand the sky anomalies and the lighting issues so much better up here than you can down there. And I feel terrible for everybody that's not getting this fantastic show, but there are here, and I sit there and I wonder, and then I go outside and I'm instantly reminded of exactly what we've been staring at for so many years now. And it's like, oh my God, you can't argue with it. They're here. They're so here, and yet, everybody on all the new stuff and the new videos and from here and there and YouTube and on Facebook, it says, oh, Nibiru is coming in July. Well, come on. We have been watching it since 2010. If you guys don't know that by now, man, where have you been hiding? What rock have you been watching? Or have you been doing any homework at all? I really wonder. Easy button, I guess. Well, again,
for those
go
that
ahead.
are on Facebook, it would, if you want to get in on some good free food, go over to Augustin Farms, and every month you can enter for a year's worth of free food, freeze-dried food.
Awesome. Yeah, that was.
And yet, worldwide, we throw food away like it's going out of style. It's insane. We got people starving all over the planet. We've got economic disaster looming, and literally, it's on our doorstep as we speak.
We have to change how we do things. People have to really, ask themselves, do I really need this? And part of that will come to you, the answer to you, when you spend some time without electricity. If you really go out in the garden and grow something once in a while, how we view our world has to change. We can't do the easy button anymore, and this, Dancing with the Stars, and I don't care what the world is doing, and I don't care how big the plastic island in the middle of the ocean is not going to do us any good, because it's going to jump up and bite us in the butt no matter what period it already has, and it is. And we're all responsible for this. We all have to do something.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We have to be the change that we seek. We have to do something. And that's why,
Did you hear about the group called Jogging for Junk?
Oh, boy,
what?
No.
There's a group that they jog down the beach, and they're called Jogging for Junk, and they go jogging down the beach, and they pick up all the junk.
Well, when I walk out of a parking lot, and if I get out of my car and there's a piece of garbage in front of me, I pick it up and I'll carry it to the garbage can inside the store. I do it always.
Yeah.
You know, I'll grab that shopping cart that somebody so feverishly left right in the middle of the parking lot, and I'll push it in, because it's just like we have a responsibility to our fellow man, earth, nature, everything. It's not a free gift here. We have to be part of it. We can't just say, well, I'll let somebody else do that, because it's not the way it works. We have to do it.
That's called kicking the can down the road. And this is what we've been taught as a society, because our illustrious, wonderful, manipulative, lying, cheating, stealing, scamming government has told us to become and do. So the foolish people who don't have two brain cells to rub together simply follow the narrative of what they've been handed instead of thinking for themselves, Sam.
Well, this pointing of fingers and everybody blaming everybody else and all that's going on, we have to be responsible for our own surroundings. And I don't know how you do it in today's world, because you got to work your butt off 18 hours just to be able to get a decent paycheck, and it's a scary thing. And the question is how long are we going to live this? How long are we going to allow it to continue? Because we're given horrendous examples. And I hate to use the word tyranny, but the definition of tyranny is when the government uses its power to suppress people. And we're being so suppressed by what's really happening around us, also that we can talk about, Dick and Jane and the White House and all this other crazy crap that's going on worldwide, instead of paying attention to the pollution and the starving children and the actual corporations that are just dumping billions of tons of toxic waste in the ground now. They stopped doing the water thing. Now there's no such thing as a Clean Ground Act, and they're just dumping it underground now. And you wonder why people are sick. That's why. Because
but people want to have their cleaners, Sam. They want to have their cleansers and their toxic chemicals to clean the crap in their house. Pardon my French there, folks. But they just don't stop and think about what it takes to make that stuff happen, and why it's so cheap to purchase. And literally, most of that stuff is pure poison, and it's some of the cheapest stuff you can buy in the market. But when it comes to using natural cleaners, like, for instance, lemon, the lemon juice itself is a total natural cleanser and cleaner. But think about what it costs to go buy one lemon at the store, Sam, a decent-sized lemon. They charge you $1 for a lemon when you go spend $2-3 on some toxic cleaner, okay, that's poisoning you, and you're putting that stuff on your counter and whatever, your utensils. It's a no-brainer for most of these people, because they don't use their noggin and say, what is this garbage in this, in this concoction of chemicals that they're putting together that I'm using in my house? And, like you said, all these pesticides and chemicals that are being put into the ground and into the groundwater, okay, it's affecting everybody in their own area, and they don't realize it. And so many people are sick. So many people are coming down with cancer. So many people come down with all kinds of diseases that never been heard of. You got to wonder why, but nobody's asking why. And it's from all the chemical abuses that we are being put through, from all these, these multinational corporations who have a free pass from the government. Why? Because they have huge subsidies, huge tax breaks, and sometimes they don't pay any taxes at all. Why? Because it keeps people employed in their, in their state, in their county. So it's a big rat wheel, Sam.
Well, we have to break the wheel. We have to break the cycle and say, I'm not going to participate with this. You have to not.
No, I agree with you, but nobody's doing it. That's the problem.
No, I know.
I don't agree with you, Robert. I think there are people that are trying to do it, but they're being harassed. For instance, there's a Pastor Dave over here in Michigan. I've interviewed him several times. He goes down to Detroit with clothes and food, and he prepares a bunch of turkeys and takes all the meat off of it and goes down there and feeds the homeless. Well, the cops come and harass him. They tell him to get, and he, you know what he does? He just waits a while and then he goes back again.
I totally get what you're saying, Badbaby, but my point is you're talking about this is in every county, in every single city, that people just don't give a damn. They want what they want.
I saw a video on Facebook the other day where this man was in a wheelchair, and there was a wheelchair lift on this bus, and the lift dropped down too fast, and he fell out of his wheelchair. And I could not believe this poor man is laying there. He's sitting in an upright position trying to get someone to help him. And these people are actually stepping over him and walking around him and looking at him like, what are you doing on the ground? And no one would help this poor man get back in his wheelchair.
Yeah, well, that's typical. That's just typical. It's unreal. But anyway, I know we kind of diverted from the main topic here, Sam. But that's just all part of the processes that people have been trained to be dumbed down, not care, be uncaring, selfish, for the most part, negate their moral responsibility towards the planet and towards their own kind, their own species. And yet everybody's sitting or doing whatever to try and scrape and earn a buck. They're lying, cheating, and stealing, doing whatever they can to try and earn a living. We live in an enslaved system of manipulation through a illegitimate system of corruption created by the bankster class. And I know it's a different subject, but it all pertains to what we've been talking about, because look at what we've done to the planet because of this system of greed that's been created by these monopolist oligarchs.
We're at the stage where Pink Floyd would call this the turning away. We've been so beaten by what we're seeing all the time that we no longer see it. And it's time for us to re-look at the ground, from the ground up to the sky, actually, and start refocusing on the things that go on around us. And if we don't, and then we're going to get caught short. And if you don't pay attention, these things that we value are no longer going to be here. And so the question is, what do you value, and how do you change your life for, a little less stress, a little less greed, and people should really stop screwing each other over just so that they can have a stake. And how opulent, do we have to go, and do we really need to keep making a lot of money for the Kardashians and all of those guys? And are they really what's important right now? And you know what's
sickening? There's more billionaires on this planet now than there ever has been in the whole of humanity. And yet you got more people starving and more people out of work. Now, can you say upside down, twisted, and backwards? I certainly can, because that's what I see.
Well, that's what happens right before, we talked about this also in the past. The change, when change happens, there's factional behavior. There's a group that says we don't want it to change, and then there's a person that says, well, okay, change. And then there's a person that goes, yee-haw, change. And all three of those different factional behaviors also affect the course. And it can happen right before our very eyes, and we can still not see it, that it's already changed because we're so caught up in our old ways. So, we have to reassess everything. We have to relook at what we're doing, because what we have been doing is not right. And we know that. We all know that.
I agree. We all know it.
If people are so inhumane right now when things are not going crazy, what's going to happen when things go crazy?
Exactly.
People need to ask, we've talked about the Texas Cube, and we see it up in our skies every day. And, I don't think people put two and there are people, creatures, beings, not from here, that are on that massive square craft, along with all the other orbs and small triangle ships and big ones and all the other sightings that we get, that we try not to talk about too crazily, and until we, document it for sure. As long as it's fact, then we can discuss it. But there's people, there's beings on that ship, and that ship is so close to us right now, and it's making a grand show. And I would start maybe reassessing my values and taking stock of what's in my home and what I need and what I don't need and what I need to get, and paying a little attention, because they stopped hiding. I don't know why they stopped hiding, but they've stopped hiding. Now they're here.
Well, they're here to observe the event, from what I've been told through my my ET friends.
Yeah,
they're
but
all here to observe the event.
Well, but it's changed, because when they come this blatantly close, and now granted, I think that, a good portion of them doing is like a space chemi scenario where the Texas cube has been sighted underneath and in front of Nepenthe headed toward Attu and Attu's moon, and they've all been so visible and so close to Earth that it's really hard to miss them. And then you add the Texas cube and the orbs and all of that, and then all of a sudden it gets muddy up there, and it's a mess, and you can't really see, but you get glimpses. And I'm thinking that there's a certain factional cause and reason why they're doing this, but I'm saying that we might be in a scenario where there's a lot more going on, and our freedom may be even less. And of course, you hear, the executive office of our government talking about a space force. Well, and how brash that person is, and he may not like what's being handed down this direction. So I think we ought to focus on that as well and be prepared for that as well. And I'm not saying, raising arms and fighting anyone, but I am saying raising arms and protect ourselves. So, we need to be a little more aware of what's going on and get a little bit more factual. And to do that, I would say you got to be careful on who you listen to and whose facts are whose, because these people that are selling this information, Planet X and WSO and all these other places that are selling membership because they talk about stuff that scares people every day. Well, we ought to stop paying attention to them and start focusing on the facts. And I can't wait till everybody gets on board with reality, because we've been doing the scientific comparisons for over 7 years. And if they don't want the information, then they deserve to be blind and fall into the rest of the sheeple and crawl out of the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole and go back to your little book. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Well, the only point I would make is this, that nobody deserves this, because most people have been led astray. Most people, for the most part, Sam, don't even have a clue of what we're talking about right now. Have no idea Planet X, Earth changes, asteroids, or anything else. Right. For the small majority of people who are awake, and I mean small majority of people who are awake, we understand what's happening. But, the only people I think that deserve what you just said are the ones who have caused and created all this situation for the rest of humanity. They're the only ones who deserve the absolute worst, because they know what they deserve.
I mean the chaos of living, a sheltered life where we do use these cleaning products in our lives, and we build our little suburban homes, and we take car payments out, and we send our kids to college and all of this just to keep this suburban thing, to keep up with the Joneses, and buy a new phone and a new laptop and a new stereo and a new car and a new washer. That we've gone too far. And
but they have been all led down that primrose path of the money masters, the money manipulators, who have caused all this. Okay, because
I'm not saying deserve to die. I'm saying we deserve to wake up. We deserve to get that wake-up call.
I got you. No, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And, from my perspective, from my friends up there, they've told me, they said, when events take place, we will be there to help. And they told me specifically, they used the biblical term, which was very interesting to me. They said, we will take the wheat from the chaff. So that tells me.
And now it's a culling of the herd.
The ones who deserve it, deserve it. The ones who don't.
Right, and that's going to be automatic without question, because there's the promise that the awake will survive. and you have to get on board with the right awake, and you can't do a quick and easy metaphysical push the easy button trip down memory lane in order to gain this. You have to actually earn your place with people.
Yeah.
You have to think things through. You can't expect to look at a video and say, now I understand. You have to say, I don't understand today, but I will. And a lot of people don't even do that anymore. They say, well, this is behind or beyond anything that I understand, and then they shut down.
Right.
And that's the people that I really want to reach, is the people who
they're good
down.
for about 5 minutes, and then it's forgotten 5 minutes later. Absolutely, Sam. I agree with you. But
what's bad is when they say, well, there ain't nothing you can do about it, right? Then they just say, well, I don't care, and they walk off.
Well, the guy that's sat there and carved the Mayan calendar. Do you know how big the Mayan calendar actually is?
It's huge. It's enormous.
It's huge. Do you know how long that probably took to carve?
Longer than they were around.
That probably took that guy 25 years to carve, somewhere in or less, somewhere around that process. And when people take the time to leave these markers behind in stone, and they hand chisel these things, and we've got thousands of examples of Sumerian tablets and that sort of stuff, then we need to actually take the time to listen, because it's not such a big, hardcore thing. The Greeks knew about a two-sun system, and we discount them because they believed in multiple gods. Well, these gods were attributations to the passing things that they saw in the sky, because they were so unbelievable and repeated that they attributed godhood to them. And superstition, of course, was
and the Hopi prophecy, they say, when the blue and red kachina come in conjunction with the earth.
Right, and the blue and the red kachina were called years ago already.
And those that aren't prepared will be left behind.
Now, the red kachina was when Saturn got here in 2014, 2015. It was totally visible, red planet. You could see it on the horizon. Here in the United States, it got really big for almost a year and a half, and then it's never been close past again. The rest of the planets have. We've got more pictures of that, too, than any of them all combined. And Uri's been by a number about 4 times. Nibiru has been by twice, and Saru has been by 3 times. And I, of course, could go on, but the passings being that we're elliptical in compared to them, we've gone through little different cycles in this last 7 to 8 years. So we've seen them at different ratios.
We have another question from Huggy, so I'm going to unmute her.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Huggy? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can
my
hear
question is, I did a lot of research on Nibiru, and all roads led to the Anunnaki. Would you agree that do you think that's BS, or is it true?
Well, I can tell you that I know for a fact that we are the backwater factory. Earth provides commodities to these other larger planets, and we facilitate these commodities to them on a cyclic basis. And this is, of course, what the Sitchin tablets and everything talk about as well, and star charts and other things. And yes, I do believe that. And they are longer lived and we are shorter lived, and I could go into grave detail about a good portion of that. But yes, totally, I agree.
I agree as well, Sam.
I don't have a great deal of dealings with information from Nibiru or Saru proper. My information came from a Pleiadian back in the 80s, and I'm not talking through channeling or any weird stuff. I had a face-to-face chat. Me and a couple of my friends were invited, shall we say, to a visitation. And the information that we got led us to believe that we are basically, a backwater race that's providing to a larger, more advanced race. And we have done this over and over and over and over and over and over again for millennium.
Yeah. What would you surmise is what number this time around? Over 1,000?
I don't understand the question. Say that again, please.
When was the first time that Earth, went into this type of collision course with the Planet X system?
Well, it's not a collision. It's always been binary. It's always
really?
Always been connected. This isn't a collision course. It isn't X coming in by itself with a little jetpack or anything like. It's two solar systems that connect static electricity every period of time, and then they pass like ships in the night, and then they spread apart, and then they weave together and apart over the millennium. Now, we know that the ownership of Earth has gone back up to 300,000 years ago, which is probably, I think, 83.3 some odd cycles back. And beyond that, we were also doing what we were doing, but in a different manner. And I don't know total amounts of that history, but from what I'm told by the Pleiadians is that things have changed, and they'd like us to be furthered in the dimensionary existence along with the same tech ratio as the other races, rather than being, shall we say, a workforce slave race.
Interesting. I found South Africa gold, where they originally came here for, and there's a gentleman down there by the name of Michael Teslinger, Tesslinger, and he just has a hard time getting heard. He has over 1 million structural evidence down there, millions, and actual Adam's calendar, and it's sitting on a hill, up on a cliff, and it overlooks a tremendously huge crater, and over in the distance are 3 pyramids, just like up in Egypt.
Oh,
but
sure, yeah.
Well,
this is not the first high technological generation. There's been other ones before this, time after time after time, and people all think.
What happened to them, Sam?
It's just part of the normal cycle. They've had arguments. They've had governorship issues. It's factional ownership of this commodity thing, and they get here every just under 4,000 years, and they do what they're going to do, and then the tectonic breakup happens of the planet like it always does, because it's part of the process, and it's laid out so they can reboot the commodities, so that the next time that the planetary groups come together again, they can collect the commodities and then go about their merry little way as usual, and do what they intervene in the ways that they see fit according to their factional design. And we are just part of the process to them. And, their lives, a single lifetime to one of these people that live on these other planets can be upward of 10 generations of us. So, what they do can have a longer lasting effect than what we even surmise in standard our outlook on the solar system.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
There's a great number of cycles that have happened. They can watch in their lifetimes. They can probably watch Nibiru come once or something like this, or in some other races that might live longer. They might watch this come 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times in their lifetime. But there's more. There's more races out there, and they live different time periods than we do, and we're short-lived comparison, and our chromosomes have been factory manipulated, and that's showing. And they don't even talk about the 24th chromosome anymore. They're only talking about, they go like even the genome company's 23andMe, and they're trying to deceive us into believing that there's only 23 chromosomes. And over time, if you say something often enough, it becomes truth, and it's spooky.
Right, I agree. Yeah, right, I agree with that. We've been lied to about everything.
Yes. But you also have to understand that they've been put in a place, and I say that's that, in parentheses, they've been put in a place of authority to try to prejudge these scenarios and try to maintain some level of standard social civility. And if everybody knew, and this is the way they explained it to me back in the 80s, if everybody knew what this was coming, you would have a number of different outcomes and behavior patterns by certain groups, from smart people all the way down to calm people, all the way down to psychosis. And they're trying to avoid that at any cost. And, of course, that's why they give out both sides of the story, so that way people get lulled into a non-reactionary drunkenship where they just ignore it, like we talked about the turning away, where people just ignore all of the negative now, and they don't even know what to do with the positive, and everybody's shutting themselves in, because we're in a period of change, because information has changed, and we're also weighing and judging this what would they call fake news or junk news. And of course now we're in this realization nationally or worldwide that there's the possibility of junk news. And so this is all part of the media changes of our society, which has happened literally since the first onset of the printing press. And ever since,
I found it interesting. Inside one of the pyramids in Egypt, a gentleman, he had his hand cam, and he clearly showed where they actually had wireless electrical technology thousands of years ago, and there was a warning. I'm sorry?
Well, technology, the ETs have technology that is just, I've seen some of it, and it's like, wow, and it's so advanced compared to ours, and they do, laser-etched computer boards on a micro scale that, and their stuff all works. And there's a lot of electricity out here and around us and in everything and part of us that's not being used, and they use it. And I've been shown some of their technology. I don't completely understand all of it, and I'm not hugely technical, but they have the ability to do a lot of things, and it's been done over and over and over again. And what we're finding is these major temples built by other people than us, and that's all that's managed to be left behind. Now, if you park a car on the street for 5,000 years, how much of it's going to be left?
True. And,
it'll be buried.
I agree. Right. I know that the sand was up very high in Egypt, by the Giza.
Well, you know where dirt comes from, don't you?
I know that clay comes from space, from meteors.
Right, dirt and dust, and most of our dirt, and that's why skeletons are buried down deep in layers, is because most of the debris that falls from space is dust and dirt and ash and all sorts of stuff that we never even see. And there's a lot of it comes from space, and people just don't even think. Now, in order for all of that stuff to be coming from somewhere, it's not floating around in a void. It's floating around in another gaseous form. And it falls into our atmosphere because we have a oxygen-based atmosphere, which grows from the phytoplankton and stuff that and all the sea life that has lived on this planet for upward of 5 billion years, and which has created our atmosphere. But there's an atmosphere out there that's different pressurized, and that has to do also with the magnetosphere of the Earth holding in our electrical cell, like a cell of water in a brain or whatever you want to call it. And
right.
There's so much more going on than what Einstein and standard science portrays as gravity versus space.
Okay, guys, I don't want to interrupt you, but we only got 10 minutes left, and we have another caller that called in, so I want to be fair.
Okay.
Thank you, Huggy. Guest 7, you are on the air. You have a question or a comment for Samuel?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Badbaby, Sam, and Robert, and Huggy Bear, and whoever else is listening in the chat. This is Robert from Waterford, Michigan. I'm finally calling in to say hello and good evening to all of you. I don't have really much to say. I'm just listening into the chat, and first time ever calling. And been a good show, and I hope Sam continues to update us every month, and everything will go great. And yeah, on a clear day here, Sam, Mr. Hofman, we're what, 948 feet above sea level. On a clear day, I look what you described to us to look for dark areas. I have 3 pair of dark gray sunglasses, but I look for the dark areas, I look for sky filler, and on a clear day, I see absolutely nothing. So,
well, there's a white cloud that will form at the edges of the planets when they come into the sunshine, and you'll see a rounded edge on these big, massive planets. And so midday and 10 a.m., 11 o'clock, all the way till sunset is a good time to see it. Now, right before sunrise is another good time to look, and you'll see these shadowings, and you'll see things. The light is just not right. And another thing I say to people is go to YouTube and look at my Understanding the Skies by Samuel Hofman, edition 1, and that's where I do the hand drawings, and we talk about the base clouds of these planets. Once you start to understand what the base clouds of these planets look like time after time, day after day after day, for year after year, and we watch them come in, and then all of a sudden you start to go, hey, look, there it is. And you see this dark base area, but they're so close right now, we're actually seeing land masses and tiny clouds around them. We're seeing their atmospheres. We're not seeing always ours. A good portion of these clouds are drag off between the two sets of planets that are on one side of the sun versus what's on the other side of the sun, and they're dragging off these space clouds. And a lot of people call them chemtrails and stuff, but they're so big and so massive around all the asteroids. And once you start to understand the depth of what we really can see out there and the depth of what we can't see, because it happens both at the same time, these round, big, huge things start when you watch for the angles of light, when the sun is shining on your left, and all of a sudden you see this illuminated, weird, cloudy thing, round shape on the right-hand side. It's the side of a massive, massive overhead planet. And once you get good at it, with these set gray-black sunglasses, you'll start to see these things, and the variations in color, the variations in dark, the base clouds. And that's part of why, I encourage people to come to our site daily, and that way over time they start to learn these patterns, and then you pattern recognize, and then before you know it, you're seeing the planets.
okay, thank you for the information. Yes, I am a member of your Skywatcher 2 site.
That's the best one to be in. It's busy.
Okay, and I was the gentleman a couple of weeks ago or 2-3 weeks ago, which I recommended you and everybody else maybe take a chance and look at railpictures.net. Thousands of railroad pictures. And
yeah, I saw some of those, and I loved them. I totally agree. If you want to post any of that stuff up there, go right ahead, please.
Because they may just have pictures that...
Oh, they do. I saw one, and I watched, my God, I must have watched it 20 times in a row. Because it showed, and it was 2015, I think, and it was somewhere in Canada. And this guy was running this straight through for literally an hour and a half video. And the whole time I'm staring at Atu sitting in front of Yuri, just as plain as day.
Oh, the railpictures.net are like just still photographs.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what you were talking about, but
no, not video, but.
Oh, well, I apologize, but boy, I was watching some train footage, and I just sat there in awe.
Okay, well,
and if you watch, if you watch other videos, random ones on YouTube, and look at the sky, you can even see the planets in television commercials now, because it's been so long now that they've been here that they're literally filmed now in just about everything, including from the Farsiga commercials to you name it. It's been our culture has wrapped around the planets being here for so long that people don't even notice it anymore.
You know, Robert, I don't know if you do watch the news, but I watch Channel 2 in the morning for the weather, and I have seen things in their, when they show the sunrise coming up over Belle Isle, I've seen things right on the news.
Yeah, it's been so long it's showing up in our standard media now, and it's in toothpaste commercials to, medicine commercials to, car insurance, the one that's, the Statue of Liberty one where they're doing the car insurance one. And I've numerous times gone, yep, there it is, plain as day. But then I get reports from around the world, so I see it all day, every day, where other people don't. And so I've, of course, have recognized these patterns in this manner, and I try to share that with everybody and get them on board with this, because this is factual. This is not guessing. I mean, this has been so accurate for so long. It's beyond even guessing. I mean, this is just it's a science, and it's reported and it's documented, and we've got years and years and years worth of pictures on our site.
Okay,
Thousands.
Cool. All right, maybe I'll call in next month when you're on another good show.
Absolutely.
Thank
Keep your eye out for cutoff of the sun towards sunset. Nepesity's coming in the evening, and it's actually cutting off the top of the sun, and it'll go milky and murky, and all of a sudden everything goes really quiet everywhere. It's really cool. I've been watching it for the last 3 days.
Okay, I will do that. All right, Badbaby, it's all yours. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Glad to have you call in. We'd love to have you call back.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You know, we're in planetary transitions again, and they're jogging. Attu's moon is now starting to jog back over to the right and has been crossing. Matthew's pictures from Malaysia have Attu's moon illuminating and then crossing, and then Jillian down in South Africa, she's got pictures of Attu's moon completely crossing in front of the sun and yet completely still being illuminated from atmospheric rounding illumination. And the object cluster group is also crossing the sun, and people are, you know, on some of the unknowing sites who are, you know, started out with the Nibiru this and Nibiru that sites, and they're all going, oh, look, the Nibiru planets, and all it is the asteroid clusters crossing the sun. And I try to go in there and help those folks, but they get mad at me, so I don't visit very often anymore. But you know, I'm trying to keep everybody on board, and we're doing factual information, and because we've done this for so long, and I just wish everybody would really, you know, learn this, because it's so. You once you start to see these planets, you can't miss the illumination of the core of Nepesity, and it shows up every day in the sky, and it's this big illuminated bottom of this big blue thing, because Nepesity is actually green, but when they get at certain points of shadowing and everything, they become a dark blue. And which makes it harder to tell which is which unless you know what.
There is an awesome picture right now, Samuel, on Truth Seeker site of exactly what you're describing. And underneath they're like those bubbly clouds, and you can see the blue-green in between them,
mm-hmm.
and you can see that it's round, and then underneath it is a huge shelf cloud, and then the ground is right there.
Right, and it's got a snorkel. Nepesity has a snorkel cloud that will drop and cause all those tornadoes that they're having tonight and this afternoon in Kansas to Missouri. And it has this wake bottom that has a double ring. And we've watched it for years and years, ever since arrival, close past arrival in 2015, which we also have photographs going back to. And we've seen this transition of all these planets come and go and come and go and come and go, and we're literally at our third transition of close major passes. And once you start to see these, you can't miss it. And like you have even noticed, that you're seeing the core cloud of the planet, and it's, you know, it's got this lump in the front, and people call it a shelf cloud. Shelf cloud was an introduction of a name that somebody at NASA decided to give an anomaly that they didn't want to tell you the rest of the story behind.
Yeah.
And we've been chuckling at all the new names they come up with for stuff. You know, well, that's, you know, my favorite one is.
I noticed that too. The weatherman's going, there's new names for these clouds.
And they're going, and lenticular clouds are above here, and you know, and they're showing you pictures of Florida. Excuse me, but lenticular clouds are only found in Arctic regions. Would you then explain to me what we're looking at? Well, in order for an Arctic region type cold air mass, there would have to be a major shadow of a planet right up there, causing this circular round lenticular mass, which we know is not a lenticular mass. It's actually the underneath of Nepesity. Now, Attu has a snail foot. Nepesity has this open core. Saru has a massive glowing open core. Nibiru has a fingered underneath sort of central tornadic bottom to it. Saturn is the winged planet. Everybody always calls that Nibiru. The new people who are looking that up think that Nibiru, the winged planet, and that's Saturn. It's winged because it has a close spatial moon, and the ionization of the yellow moon of Saturn goes around Saturn proper, and sometimes completely illuminates so much that it blinds you. You can't even see Saturn at all, and yet it's right there. and the wake goes around its outside of its thing. And that's currently just to the right of the sun and is headed toward us and will come in sooner. The other day I saw Nibiru come up real close toward Earth over time when I was in Missoula looking at the thing in the parking lot for hours. And I watched it, and I was just in so awe that Nibiru was this close, this fast. And yet then I think back, and another 3 or 4 months has gone by. And, you know, we've been watching them ever since 2012 and 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and here we are. Oh, my God, they're still doing this thing. And it's still awesome to this day. And I just wish more people would get on this and pass this information on because, you know, then it'll become standard understanding. And go to YouTube, type Samuel Hofman or Sam Hofman in there, Hofman with one F. It's the Dutch version instead of the German. And you can get the education on how to see these things. And once you do, you'll never forget this. This is the most unbelievable, incredible show, and we've been watching it for over 7 years. And
well, Samuel, we've burned through our 2 hours tonight. Time just flies when we have you on. It always does.
I know. I could talk forever. Thank God for water.
and just before we get out of here, why don't you give out a little information about if someone wants to contact you, and for all those that are listening, if you want to help Samuel out.
I had a little fundraiser a while back to help pay for a roof, and my computer died. Got a new one. Did what everybody told me to do, and I cross-referenced ahead of time those fresh pictures onto the new computer day one, and I gave myself a new virus on my brand new computer. So then it almost died on me for the last 2 weeks. I've been trying to kick it in the right direction to moving as a brand new computer should, instead of one that's already compromised. But there's a possibility that I may go off, you know, at any day, and I've always expected that would happen. And
yeah,
so,
and you know, Samuel's in the phone book, so y'all can look him up. And if you got a computer that you can send to him, or
no, don't do that. I got Hulks. I just need to put in brand new operating systems. I just need to buy new hard drives over and over again. You know, and I'm putting money into it all the time.
Help Samuel out. It'd be
yeah, you know, I always give out my P.O. box, and that's P.O. Box 625, Lolo, Montana, 59847. And if people want to drop me, you know, $5, $10, $20, it'd be cool. I did get some money from some folks here just a little while back, and they helped me get the new computer. Thank you very much to everyone that did contribute. It was fantastic. It was timely. It was wonderful, and I did manage to pay off the roof expenditure. And I still have to go back up again and fix that thing one more time. Oh, my God. Anyway, yeah, I thought I had it fixed, and then the other day we had another heavy major rain as Nepenthe goes over the top of us here in Montana. And what a hell of a storm it was. And thank God our rivers take it because we got lots of mountains to push it into the valleys. And anyway, and so best way is like go to Montana Skywatcher 2 and become a member and learn the background. You're welcome to share your posts because when we get citizen reporters, everybody shares the pictures, and then they can realize that what looks like a cloud in one area and also looks like the same damn cloud in Indonesia, then it's not a cloud, it's something way up in space, and which is what we've proven many years ago and time after time still do every day. So that's about all I have to say.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. And for everybody that's new in the window tonight, we are only out here every 2 weeks for the summer. Robert and I have a lot on our plates right now, so we're going every 2 weeks, and Samuel is going to be coming every month at the end of our second show for the month. So
right.
He will be here every month for our second show of the month. So, you know, and if you want me to send you emails, then just join TalkShoe and follow me and register, and I send out emails to let you know who's going to be on. So, again, thanks, Sam. I will post this recording on your Facebook page in the morning.
All righty.
And you take care. We'll see you next month.
Yeah, you guys
Absolutely.
take care also, and watch out for the weather for this next couple of weeks coming in over the middle of the United States. These close planetary passes, they're pulling all kinds of extreme weather our direction, and it's going to be a ball game. And last time we talked about got boat. You know, you're going to need a boat, guys. And put that lawn furniture away for the year, otherwise it's going to be flying down the street.
I don't have is a boat.
Yeah, well, put your lawn furniture away, otherwise you won't own it. So it'll blow away.
Somebody else will, right, Sam?
Yeah, did you want to get rid of that old broken down trampoline the kids broke 5 years ago? Well, then put that out in the yard. It won't be there next week.
Right.
All right, Sam. Thanks for the warning.
All
We'll
right.
see you next month.
You guys
Take care, Sam.
Aloha from tropical Montana.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, so we will be back in 2 weeks, and I have not lined anyone up yet, but I'm thinking about bringing back Michael Horn. What do you think, Robert?
Oh, absolutely. Love Michael. Great guy, great guest. Has a different take on things. Always good to get a different opinion.
Yeah, and so we'll get a hold of Michael and see if we can have him on. If not, we'll have someone interesting out here. And
Absolutely.
for those who don't know who Michael Horn is, explain real quick, Robert.
Michael Horn is the basically the contact for Billy Meyer through the Palladians, through Billy Meyer. Michael Horn is basically American representative of Billy Meyer with all of Billy's notes and writings and contacts throughout the years since actually 1958, and all the Palladian messages that been given to Billy Meyer that Michael has basically put on his website, theyfly.com. And I'll tell you what, they've been 100% accurate, no misses, none, zero. They've been spot on. So you guys can make up your own minds and see what you think about Billy Meyer. I happen to feel very strongly that Billy Meyer's contacts are very, very real, and the accuracy's been second to none, gang. So should be an eye opener.
Another great show. Thank you so much, Robert, for your time. I just love having you.
My pleasure. Well, I love being with you, sweetie.
Okay, well, you take care, and I'll talk to you real soon.
All right, honey. Bye-bye, everybody.